June 2019. The Philippine Sea, over 20,000 feet below the surface, a research vessel discovers a shipwreck unlike any other. The hull is split, the superstructure crushed by unimaginable pressure. But the bow still points forward, as if frozen mid-charge. This is USS Johnston, Destroyer 557, a ship that weighed just 2,100 tons, a ship armed with 5 small guns and 10 torpedoes. On October 25, 1944, she did something no warship had done before or since. She attacked an entire enemy fleet. Alone, without orders, without hesitation. This is the story of the most aggressive naval attack in American history, and the Native American commander who led it. His name was Ernest Evans, born in 1908 in Pawnee, Oklahoma. His mother was Cherokee, his father was part Creek Indian. Growing up in Oklahoma during the Depression, Evans faced poverty and prejudice, but he had a dream: to serve in the United States Navy. In 1926, at age 18, he received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy. He was one of the first Native American midshipmen in the Academy's history. Annapolis was not easy for him. Some classmates questioned whether an Indian belonged there, but Evans graduated in 1931, ranked in the middle of his class. His fitness report noted, energetic and resourceful, shows promise as a leader. For the next decade, Evans served on destroyers across the Pacific. He learned ship handling, gunnery, tactics, but more than that, he learned to trust his instincts. By 1943, Evans had earned a reputation: aggressive, fearless, unconventional. The Navy gave him command of a brand-new Fletcher-class destroyer, USS Johnston. October 27, 1943. Brown Shipbuilding, Seattle, Washington. The commissioning ceremony for USS Johnston. As the crew assembled on deck, Commander Evans stood before them. He was a small man, just 5 feet 7 inches tall, but when he spoke, his voice carried across the ship. According to crew members present that day, Evans said, "This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now." Nobody got off. Evans continued, "The Johnston will fight until she sinks. If she goes down, she'll go down fighting. You have my word on that." The crew nicknamed him the Chief, a reference to his Native American heritage. They would follow him anywhere. USS Johnston was a Fletcher-class destroyer. She measured 376 feet long and displaced 2,100 tons. She carried 5 5-inch guns, 10 21-inch torpedoes, and numerous anti-aircraft weapons. By destroyer standards, she was modern and well-armed. But destroyers were never meant to fight capital ships. They were designed to screen larger vessels, hunt submarines, and deliver torpedo attacks under cover of darkness or smoke. Johnston's armor was minimal. Her hull plating was just half an inch thick in most places. A 14-inch battleship shell could pass through her hull like a bullet through paper. But what Johnston lacked in armor, she made up for in speed. Her twin engines could push her to 36 knots, over 41 miles per hour. And under Commander Evans, she would need every knot. For a year, Johnston fought across the Pacific. She screened carriers during raids on Japanese-held islands. She bombarded enemy positions. She rescued downed pilots. At the Battle of Kwajalein in February 1944, Johnston distinguished herself by providing accurate fire support for Marine landings. At the Battle of the Philippine Sea in June 1944, she helped protect American carriers from Japanese air attacks. Commander Evans pushed his crew hard. They trained constantly. Gunnery drills, damage control drills, man overboard drills. The crew became one of the best-trained destroyer crews in the fleet. Evans often walked the ship barefoot, checking equipment, talking to sailors. He knew every man's name. He knew their hometowns, their families, their fears. One sailor later recalled, "The chief made you feel like you mattered. Like what you did made a difference. We would have followed him into hell." In October 1944, they did exactly that. USS Johnston joined Task Unit 774.3, nicknamed Taffy 3. The unit consisted of 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, and 4 destroyer escorts. Their mission was simple: provide air support for General MacArthur's landing at Leyte Gulf in the Philippines. The escort carriers would launch planes to support ground troops. The screening ships would protect against submarines and aircraft. It was supposed to be a routine assignment. The major Japanese fleet units were reported to be far away or destroyed. On the night of October 24, 1944, Taffy 3 steamed peacefully off the coast of Samar Island. The weather was clear. The sea was calm. Most of the crew slept soundly. 60 miles to the north, a massive Japanese fleet was slipping through the San Bernardino Strait. 23 warships, 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, dozens of destroyers. They were heading straight for Taffy 3, and nobody knew they were coming. October 25, 1944, 6:47 a.m. The first light of dawn breaks over the Philippine Sea. On Johnston's bridge, Commander Evans is drinking coffee. The ship is at general quarters, her normal dawn readiness condition. Suddenly, the radio crackles. A lookout on one of the escort carriers reports ships on the horizon. Large ships, with pagoda masts. Evans raises his binoculars. On the northern horizon, silhouettes emerge from the morning haze. He counts them. 4, 6, 10, more. His executive officer says what everyone is thinking. Those are Japanese battleships. Evans lowers his binoculars. For a moment, he's silent. Then he turns to his officer of the deck and says calmly, "All hands to battle stations. Left full rudder. All engines ahead flank. Load all guns." The general alarm sounds throughout the ship. Men sprint to their stations. The engineering crew pushes the engines beyond their rated power. Johnston begins to accelerate. On the flagship, Admiral Sprague is faced with an impossible situation. His 6 escort carriers are slow, barely 18 knots. The Japanese battleships can make 27 knots. His carriers will be overtaken and destroyed within the hour. Sprague orders the carriers to run south. He orders aircraft to attack. And at 6:50 a.m., he transmits the order. "Small boys, form up and prepare to attack with torpedoes." Small boys, the informal term for destroyers. Sprague's plan is for the 3 destroyers to coordinate their attack, approach together under smoke cover, and launch torpedoes simultaneously to confuse Japanese defenses. Commander Evans hears the order. He ignores it. At 6:50 a.m., without waiting for the other destroyers, without forming up, without coordination, Commander Evans gives the order that will define his legacy. "All ahead flank. Commence firing." Johnston charges forward, alone. The other 2 destroyers, Hull and Heermann, are still turning, still forming up. But Johnston is already racing toward the enemy at 35 knots. Evans has picked his target. The heavy cruiser Kumano, leading the Japanese formation. Kumano weighs 13,000 tons and carries 10 8-inch guns. She outweighs Johnston 6-1. Evans doesn't care. Johnston closes the range. 20,000 yards, 18,000, 15,000. Japanese shells begin falling around her. Massive geysers of water, colored red and yellow by dye markers, erupt on both sides of the charging destroyer. At 10,000 yards, Johnston opens fire with all 5 guns. Her shells arc toward Kumano, striking the cruiser's superstructure. Small caliber rounds, but accurate. Johnston keeps closing. 9,000 yards. 8,000. The Japanese are firing everything at this lone destroyer. Shell splashes tower 200 feet into the air. The ship vibrates from near misses. On Johnston's bridge, Commander Evans stands calmly, giving course corrections. His executive officer later testified, "The captain was absolutely calm. No excitement, no fear. Just calculating angles and ranges like he was at a training exercise." At 7,000 yards, Evans orders, "Fire torpedoes, full spread." 10 torpedoes leap from Johnston's tubes. White wakes race across the water toward Kumano. Then Evans does something that seems insane. Instead of turning away to escape, he turns toward the enemy and continues closing. Why? To ensure the torpedoes hit, to confuse Japanese fire control, to draw fire away from the escort carriers. At 6,000 yards, multiple explosions rock the cruiser Kumano. Torpedo hits. Water and flame erupt from her bow. The entire forward section of the cruiser is blown away. Kumano turns out of formation, flooding and listing, forced to withdraw. A destroyer has just crippled a heavy cruiser. But Commander Evans isn't finished. With all torpedoes expended, Johnston should retreat. Standard naval doctrine says, attack, fire torpedoes, escape under smoke. Evans does the opposite. He identifies a new target, the battleship Congo, one of Japan's most powerful warships, 30,000 tons, 8 14-inch guns, armor up to 16 inches thick. Evans turns Johnston directly toward her and opens fire. At 7 a.m., Johnston's 5 guns begin hammering the battleship. The 5-inch shells cannot penetrate Congo's main armor, but they don't need to. Evans aims for the superstructure, the pagoda mast, the fire control systems, the exposed equipment. Johnston scores hit after hit. Japanese action reports later confirmed that Congo's fire control radar was damaged, her rangefinders were knocked out, and multiple fires broke out on her upper decks. The battleship, confused and damaged, turns away from this suicidally aggressive destroyer. For 20 minutes, Johnston duels with battleships and cruisers. Her guns fire as fast as the crews can load them. Empty brass shell casings pile up on deck. The gun barrels glow red hot. Then, at 7:20 a.m., Johnston's luck runs out. A salvo of 3 14-inch shells from the battleship Congo straddles Johnston. One shell misses ahead, one misses astern. The third shell strikes Johnston directly amidships. The explosion is catastrophic. The shell penetrates the fin hull and detonates in the forward engine room. 50 men are killed instantly. The ship loses power. Steam and smoke fill the lower decks. Johnston slows, dead in the water. Commander Evans, on the bridge, is thrown against the bulkhead. Shrapnel tears through the bridge structure. Evans is wounded, bleeding from multiple cuts, but he refuses medical attention. He pulls himself upright and begins giving orders. Damage report. Get me steering control. Auxiliary power to the guns. The crew responds with remarkable discipline. Damage control teams fight fires below decks. Electricians reroute power. Within minutes, Johnston has partial power restored. She begins moving again, slowly, but moving. Evans knows his ship is mortally wounded, but he also knows the Japanese fleet is still bearing down on the escort carriers. Every minute he can buy, every Japanese ship he can distract, means American lives saved. So he keeps fighting. For the next 2 hours, Johnston engages in one of the most extraordinary defensive actions in naval history. Unable to maneuver effectively, she becomes a floating gun platform. Her crews fire at every Japanese ship that comes in range. Cruisers, destroyers, even battleships. At 8 a.m., 3 Japanese destroyers close in to finish Johnston off. Evans orders his 40mm and 20mm anti-aircraft guns to engage. These are weapons designed to shoot down aircraft, not fight ships. But Johnston fires them anyway, raking the Japanese destroyers with machine gun fire. One Japanese destroyer is hit repeatedly in her bridge and superstructure. She turns away. At 8:30 a.m., Johnston nearly runs out of 5-inch ammunition. The gun crews have been firing for almost 2 hours straight, but they find a few dozen rounds remaining and keep shooting. At 9 a.m., a Japanese heavy cruiser closes to 7,000 yards and fires a full broadside. Multiple shells strike Johnston. Her remaining engine is destroyed. Fires break out across the ship. The hull begins listing to port. Commander Evans, still on the bridge, covered in blood from his wounds, surveys the damage. His executive officer later recalled Evans saying simply, "We've done all we can." At 9:45 a.m., Evans gives the order to abandon ship. The crew begins jumping overboard. Life rafts are thrown into the water. Wounded men are helped over the side. Throughout this, Japanese ships are still firing. Shells continue to fall around the sinking destroyer. Commander Evans supervises the evacuation. He moves through the ship, checking compartments, making sure no one is left behind. His executive officer pleads with him to abandon ship. Evans refuses. "You go. I'm staying with her." Survivors remember seeing Evans on the bridge as they swam away. He was standing at the forward window, watching his crew escape. His shirt had been blown off. His body was covered in blood and burns. He raised his hand in a final salute. At 10:10 a.m., USS Johnston rolls to port and begins her final plunge. The bow rises, the stern sinks, and the destroyer that fought alone slips beneath the waves. She had been in combat for 3 hours and 20 minutes. She had fired all 10 torpedoes, over 800 shells, and thousands of anti-aircraft rounds. She had damaged 4 Japanese warships. She had drawn fire away from the escort carriers, allowing them to launch aircraft and escape. And she had bought enough time for the Japanese commander, Admiral Kurita, to become confused and hesitant. Commander Ernest E. Evans went down with his ship. His body was never recovered. Of the 327 men aboard Johnston, 186 were killed in action. 141 survived, floating in the Philippine Sea for up to 50 hours before rescue. Survivors later reported something extraordinary. As they floated in the water, Japanese destroyers passed nearby. Instead of firing on the helpless sailors, the Japanese crews came to attention on deck and saluted. It was a gesture of respect, warrior to warrior, enemy to enemy. One survivor recalled, "I couldn't believe what I was seeing. We'd been trying to kill each other for 3 hours." But they understood what Johnston had done. They understood courage. Commander Ernest E. Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. The citation reads in part, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepid valor above and beyond the call of duty, as commanding officer of the USS Johnston in action against major units of the enemy Japanese fleet. The first to lay a smoke screen and to open fire as an enemy task force bore down on our transports, Commander Evans gallied his command, which was instantly taken under fire by hostile guns. Undaunted by damage sustained under the terrific volume of fire, he unhesitatingly joined others in a torpedo attack against the Japanese, and then boldly engaged the enemy in close-range gun action. When his ship sustained another hit, he fearlessly remained at his post and fought valiantly until the Johnston went down. Evans was the first Native American in the United States Navy to receive the Medal of Honor. The Battle off Samar, part of the larger Battle of Leyte Gulf, ended in an American victory. Admiral Kurita, confused by the ferocity of the American defense, withdrew his fleet at 9:30 a.m. The combination of aircraft attacks, torpedo runs by destroyers Johnston, Hull, and Heermond, and the aggressive gun actions by the destroyer escorts convinced Kurita he was facing a much larger American force. He believed he was outnumbered. He believed he was taking unsustainable losses. He ordered a retreat. Thousands of American troops landing at Leyte lived because of that decision. And Johnston's solo charge was a major factor in creating the chaos and confusion that led to Kurita's withdrawal. Admiral Clifton Sprague, commander of Taffy III, later wrote, "The Johnston's attack, made alone and without orders, was one of the most audacious acts I have ever witnessed. Commander Evans' decision to engage immediately, rather than wait for coordination, may have saved this entire task unit." For 75 years, Johnston rested on the seafloor of the Philippine Sea. Her exact location was unknown. Her depth was estimated at over 20,000 feet, too deep for most exploration equipment. In October 2019, explorer and retired Navy officer Victor Vescovo led an expedition to locate the wreck. Using a deep-diving submersible capable of reaching extreme depths, his team searched the area where Johnston was believed to have sunk. On October 29, 2019, they found her. The wreck lies at a depth of 20,406 feet, over 4 miles down. The pressure at that depth is over 9,000 pounds per square inch. The hull is twisted and broken, but the ship is recognizable. Her bow still points forward, in the direction she was charging when she made her final attack. Her gun mounts are still trained to starboard, frozen in their last firing position. The ship number, 557, is still visible on the hull. Johnston rests as a war grave, protected under international law. She will remain there forever. A steel monument to extraordinary courage. Commander Ernest Edwin Evans grew up in poverty in Oklahoma. He faced discrimination for his Native American heritage. He was told he didn't belong at Annapolis, but on October 25, 1944, he showed the world what courage looks like. He didn't wait for orders. He didn't calculate odds. He didn't hesitate. He saw his country's ships in danger, and he attacked. One destroyer against an entire fleet. He fought until his ammunition was gone. He fought until his engines were destroyed. He fought until his ship was sinking beneath him. And when he died, even his enemies saluted him. USS Johnston earned the Presidential Unit Citation. Her crew received numerous individual medals. But perhaps the greatest honor is this. When naval officers study destroyer tactics, when they learn about aggressive action and decisive leadership, they study Commander Evans. They study the man who charged alone. Today, 3 lessons from Johnston's action are taught at the Naval Academy. First, initiative wins battles. Evans didn't wait for permission or coordination. He saw an opportunity and took it. Second, aggression creates confusion. The Japanese expected the American ships to run. Johnston's immediate attack disrupted their plans and created hesitation. Third, courage is contagious. When Johnston charged, the other destroyers followed. When the destroyers attacked, the destroyer escorts attacked. Johnston's example inspired an entire task unit to fight beyond all reasonable expectation. These lessons are written in the blood of 186 men who died aboard Johnston. Men who followed their commander into impossible odds. Men who never surrendered. In October 2020, the U.S. Navy commissioned a new guided missile destroyer, USS Ernest E. Evans, DDG-141. She is named in honor of the Cherokee commander who charged a fleet. At the commissioning ceremony, members of the Cherokee Nation attended. Native American veterans saluted, and the ship's first commanding officer said, "We carry Commander Evans' legacy forward, his courage, his initiative, his refusal to accept defeat." The new USS Evans carries advanced missiles, radar, and weapon systems that Commander Evans could never have imagined. But her mission is the same as Johnston's. Protect American forces, go in harm's way, fight with honor, and if called upon, to charge forward no matter the odds. In the history of naval warfare, few ships have fought as fiercely as USS Johnston. Few commanders have shown the audacity of Ernest Edwin Evans, a Cherokee warrior from Oklahoma, a destroyer captain in the United States Navy, a man who attacked a fleet alone and changed the course of a battle. His ship lies 4 miles beneath the Philippine Sea, but his legacy lives in every naval officer who studies his tactics, every sailor who learns his story, every person who hears his name. USS Johnston. Destroyer 557, the ship that refused to run, the ship that charged alone, commissioned October 27, 1943, sunk in action October 25, 1944. Battle duration, 3 hours, 20 minutes. 327 men served aboard her. 186 gave their lives. 141 came home. Their commander, Ernest Edwin Evans, Medal of Honor recipient, went down with his ship. He kept his promise. Johnston went down fighting, and she entered history immortal.